So it is day 15 of the path to enoughness. And one of our readers wrote in and was talking about being too much, always being told too loud, too much. She was too much to handle, things like that. And so you wanted to speak to that.
Yeah. Well, so the idea of how there's something about talking about enoughness, not being enough, when your whole life you've been told you're too much.
Right.
What does that mean? And I've heard that before many times, actually, where I've had clients say that they were always told they were too much, too loud, too creative, too something. I think everybody knows what you can imagine what we mean when I say, well, you're just too much.
Yeah, you probably got too charming.
Yeah, I still get that a lot. And I there's another one we talked about because you and I both got, you're too sensitive.
Right.
Right? And you're too needy. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of what else I've heard so many of these things over the years from clients.
I overreact too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's really, it doesn't mean that you're too any of those things. It means you're too much for the person telling you that.
Right.
They don't feel enough to handle your creativity, your needs, your loudness, your presence, your all of those things, because they're generally positive things.
Right.
And can positive things actually be so exaggerated that they're not serving you well? That they're, we talk a lot about this in our work with emotional intelligence, that when you have a strength that when it gets exaggerated, that can really get in the way.
Right.
I learned, Dr. Deb taught me this over years of working with her in real time, because that's where effectiveness worked, where this feedback is
She's
effective.
very good at that too.
And that I had a lot of strengths that were too much for you. My humor was too much. The use of sarcasm was too much. It never occurred to me that sarcasm was harmful.
Right. Me neither. Right. Yeah, we both talked about it.
It was my first language, in my family. That's how you knew you were loved. You're being ribbed for something. And so there's too much humor is not helpful.
Right.
Too much sensitivity is important. Too much sensitivity can really get in the way. But and I suppose people could argue that then, but I haven't seen that yet. I think there's too much sensitivity to me is that you can't really be too sensitive. It's that there's a lacking something there.
Right.
There's some strength that can be built that can be more helpful.
Right.
It's not the sensitivity that's a problem. It's when it's in the way is when there's a lack of, what would you call that? It's not lack of confidence. It's a lack of enoughness. A feeling of, that's why it's such a great catch-all phrase. When I was too sensitive, or put little air quotes around that, my emotional needs were not being met. I was not able to express what I needed to express. I was not being seen or heard. And others around me who said that were people who didn't know how to be more caring or nurturing or sensitive.
Right.
Therefore, they pinned it on me.
Right.
I don't know anybody that was really actually too sensitive. They had parents that didn't have the capacity to allow them to be emotional.
Right.
And those emotions are natural and normal and easy if we allow them to flow.
Right.
And when they scare us, we want to tell someone they're too sensitive. Or they're too needy, or they're too loud, or they're too something.
Or we're tuning into something that the other people literally just don't see it.
Right.
And we're having a reaction. We're like trying to point it out, and it falls on deaf ears. Or not deaf ears, but not being able to manage it, like you said.
Yeah, if you're telling your parent your troubles, and they feel that, and it's triggering them because they don't have the capacity to be what you need them to be for you. Their best defense is making it your problem. Right. Their defense is you're too sensitive, because otherwise that would make me a bad parent.
And as a young child, it's too much to manage.
Yeah.
And so then we stuff that inside, and it becomes problematic.
And for a young parent, it's a lot to manage too.
It is a lot.
I don't know how to be. Do you know anyone that knows how to be a perfect parent?
No.
I mean, just to give a little allowance there, I don't know how to do that.
No, it is. It's very tricky. And kids are the ultimate mirror, because you see parts of yourself. And And if you can't manage it, we reject it. It's very similar to when we don't like something in somebody. It's like, what is that part of us that we don't like about ourselves?
Debbie Ford's work. What is it about them you don't like about yourself? And boy, I keep discovering. There's so many things I've discovered I still don't like about myself. Well, that's not quite true. That I either didn't. So if you read Debbie Ford's book, it's at the shadow side of the light workers.
You've talked about it. I haven't read it.
And so it's not so much that you are that. It's not that I don't like myself or there's something about myself I don't like. It's that I recognize there's something scary in someone or something that feels really off to me that I don't like. And I'm recognizing that I have been that.
Mm-hmm.
I have been them in some way, or I am that and I don't like it, or I certainly have the capacity to be that. And that scares me, or I don't like it.
Right.
And what I've discovered in this last couple of weeks is there's a lot of behavior that's kind of typical in our culture of how people come together that I have been in the past, and I don't like it, and I didn't like it then, I don't like it now, and I don't want to return to it. And there's nothing really wrong with it. It's kind of normal
and
in
what
our
is
culture.
It you're speaking about?
Just when we're talking about the data. That we connect with each other on the data. Who are you? How much money you make? What do you do for a living? Which is just this guy's way of seeing how important you are.
Right.
How educated you
how
are.
much time do you want to spend with you?
Yeah. If you're good enough for them to be bothered with.
Right.
And if I wanted to go to a networking thing, that's what I felt like. And at a networking thing, people ask you, what do you do for a living?
Right.
And they can figure out in 30 seconds whether you're their mark or whatever prospect, whatever you want to call it. And if not, they'll turn on their heels and move on to the next one.
Right.
And it's like, I'm not here to decide my demographic if I fit your avatar. So I hate that so much. But
and I think that comes too with our increasing awareness. When you do start doing your inner work, you start realizing that it's like, wait a minute, I like these parts of myself. And then people will walk up and, size you up. And if you don't fall into their criteria, they might walk away. And when you do that work, sometimes you're happy now that they're walking away.
Well, right. That's right. And you've said this in the last year that we've been working together. You've commented several times about how you have been attracting different people in your life that you didn't know existed a year ago.
Right. It's very true. Yeah, much more loving, much more heart-centered, not so ego-driven.
That's right. Now, there's exercises we do in some of our retreats where we talk about the people you're surrounded with, the people that are putting you down, the people that are telling you you're too much, or the people that are telling you you're not this enough or that enough. And when they're telling you too much, remember, they're telling you you're not good enough for them to handle. You're not quiet enough. You're still pointing out an imperfection.
Right.
You're too much. Well, they're really saying you're not less enough. You're not small enough. You're not quiet enough. You're not, reserved enough. You're embarrassing me. You're bringing shame on me or the family or our church or our school, something, or our place of work.
Right.
And they're worried about how they will look.
Right.
And you're not good enough to keep them looking good. So you're just fine where you are.
And and they don't even know that they're just part of the system.
And
it's also like part of our friendship. How we came together as friends is we were both told these things, and so our humor and our sarcasm and the way we are we're sensitive to certain things, and we do tune into certain things. And
we do.
It's really great for me having you as a friend in that way, where we can talk about these things.
Well, I see. It's easy for me to feel seen and heard with you because it's like so often, it's like, wow, somebody gets me. Like we were identical twins, emotional twins, separated at birth.
Well, you even said to me several times, you're like, well, I didn't think anybody was listening to me because I'd come up with some detail that you had said. And it's nice, but it takes time. These things take time. They don't happen overnight, and we want them to be fixed because they can hurt inside, but that's part of the journey of uncovering it, which is something that we're getting very adept at, and we can do that faster for people.
That's true.